After nearly 25 hours with Alex and the crew, a dozen chuckles, and a few shed tears, I've finally played Lunar Silver Star Story. And let me tell you, basic doesn't have to mean boring. Get ready for a Whose Side Are You On Anyway? Ballad singing, Saturday morning cartoon style episode of the series in which we venture well beyond the rose-tinted haze to deliver a modern and fresh take on the games that you love. No sugarcoating, no fluff, no nostalgia. The year is 1996. The UK-based quintet known as the Spice Girls released their first smash single, Wannabe. Halloween costumes for millennial girls were never the same. Mission Impossible roared onto the silver screen, solidifying Tom Cruise as an icon in American movies. Couch jumping was still loaded. The Chicago Bulls defeated the Seattle Supersonics after Michael Jordan squandered a couple years being absolutely middling at AA baseball. But homie was back like he never left. And in gaming, the already floundering Sega Saturn was mere months away from having the plug pulled on it forever. Coming off the incredible success that was the Sega Genesis, Sega had begun a nasty, gnarly spiral from grace into the deepest bowels of failure. The Genesis had been a monster hit, but the Sega CD and 32X had already burned a hole and many bridges in the company's goodwill. The Saturn was limping along, months away from being quietly unplugged. But before Sega's empire crumbled, there was this bright little spark on the Mega CD. Lunar, the Silver Star, released in 1992 in Japan and 1993 in the US, developed by Game Arts in partnership with Studio Alex, a bunch of ex-Falcom folks who wanted to make a different kind of RPG, quote unquote. But what did that mean exactly? Well, it meant Red Book audio, voiced dialogue, anime FMV, all pretty radical for the era. Reception for this first game was phenomenal. It was great, or at least as great as anything could be for the Mega/Sega CD. 100,000 copies were sold from the initial production run. That counts as a mega hit for the add-on, and it was credited with driving interest in the new hardware. As much interest as could be garnered for, such an ill-conceived product. Now fast forward to 1996. Game Arts took it upon themselves to remake the game for 32-bit consoles. Lunar, Silver Star Story Complete, was first released in 1996 for the Saturn in Japan, and later on the PlayStation in 1998 in Japan and 1999 stateside. The goals were ambitious. The original version had 4 voice actors. The PlayStation version had 15. The original game had a few minutes of animation. The PlayStation version had nearly an hour. The scope, the scale, and production value were paramount to Silver Star Story Complete, and with higher resolution graphics, a completely revamped soundtrack by Noriyuki Iwadare, alongside quality of life improvements out the wazoo. This version was primed to be not only the best version of the game, but the first opportunity most people had to play it at all. You know what? I have no idea why I didn't play Lunar back on the PS1. It feels like it was right in my bag for the era. What with the Suikoden's, Tales of Destinies, and Phantasy Star 4s that I would consume over and over again. I remember seeing that super dope box set that it came in. It looked right up my alley, but let's be honest, these games were not cheap back then. I'd be lucky to get a new JRPG once every 4 or 6 months, and Lunar was always so hard to come by. And with all the stuff you got in that box, it was even more expensive than the usual game. Mama ain't have it like that. Now, other changes made to this version include expanding of the story. most notably in Alex and Lunar's interactions, as well as new scenes with Ghaleon to make you hate this smug, manipulative ass even more. And of course, there was the translation. Oh boy, the translation. Now, Working Designs was a bit notorious for interjecting modern American humor and pop culture references into their scripts, and this game may stand as the most egregious example. It really changed up the tone in some ways, and I can't say I love when people mess with translations in this particular manner. But luckily, that's not how I played it for this review. We'll get to that soon. Despite the localization quirks, SSSC was widely acclaimed. GameSpot called it a must-buy for fans of the series, and official US PlayStation Magazine urged that Lunar deserves to be played based on its own merits, not just nostalgia. They were way ahead of the curve. Now, EGM's reviewers praised the witty dialogue and strong storytelling. One even called it, quote, easily the most well-written RPG I've ever played, earning their distinction of Game of the Month. Their worst feature? No, sounded like a little girl.
Look, Alex! Look at all the ships! And a huge town!
Nice. Now, needless to say, the remake introduced Lunar to a much larger international audience during that JRPG boom of the late 90s. Selling over 220,000 copies in 1999, it was the third best-selling RPG of the year, behind only Planescape Torment and the juggernaut known as Final Fantasy VIII. Wait, I don't remember Planescape. What the fuck is Planescape? Why don't I remember that name? It was probably a PC game. Anyway, that was a huge accomplishment for a 2D game in a 3D era. Retaining that 16-bit charm and bright, vibrant style felt good being juxtaposed against the darker, grittier tone of games like Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VIII. For as jaded as gaming seems now, we felt that way back then too, y'all. The cycle never stops. Now, the upbeat Saturday morning cartoon vibes were just warm, inviting, and made you feel so good. It was a throwback before we really needed throwbacks. I, however, played this groovy little game via the Lunar Remastered Collection. Released in 2025, it brings together both this game and Eternal Blue, the follow-up sequel, into a total package with upscaled visuals, quality of life updates, thank God, and a retuned difficulty that matches the Japanese version instead of the ramped up Working Designs one. 3x battle speed, shared inventory, and a beefed up graphic system aside. How does this version and Lunar Silver Star Story Complete more broadly hold up today for a new player looking to get into an old classic? Well, let's talk about it, starting with the story. Spoilers ahead, so skip to the next section if you haven't played Lunar and you'd still like to. At first glance, Lunar's story looks like typical JRPG fodder. Small town kid with big dreams sets out on a quest, finds love, makes friends, faces a world-ending evil. And that's not entirely untrue. But what separates Lunar Silver Star Story from the crowd is how it plays its tune. It's beautiful, sweet, melodic tune. Alex isn't the destined hero who wakes up with a sword and a prophecy. He's just a kid from Berg who idolizes the Dragon Master Dine, a local legend who once saved the world alongside his friends. He doesn't dream of power. He dreams of becoming someone worth singing about. His not quite girlfriend, Luna, is that childhood friend type we've seen thousands of times, but she's handled with a real gentleness that makes her feel much more human than usual. More than a healer girl who waits at home. She's part of the emotional core that pushes Alex and the rest of the party forward. Now, early on, the game sets a tone that's lighthearted and almost pastoral. You're running around your sleepy village, hanging out with your friends, chasing adventure. Then slowly, the scope widens. You meet new party members. Nash, the smug magic student and complete asshole. Fuck that guy. Jessica, the priest's daughter with a mean left hook. Mia, the timid mage with a hidden strength. And Kyle, the lovable, drunken, womanizing pirate. They all feel like exaggerated anime tropes, sure, but there's this genuine chemistry that makes their banter just pop. Though, low-key, I don't fuck with Nash. He was by far my least favorite character. Him and Mia, that whole timid but secretly strong trope is tired, and it felt outdated even back then. They remind me of a couple on like Love is Blind that both suck, like, you know, Madison and Joe this season. And we can't forget Alex's flying smart mouth white thing. He might have the most dialogue in the game, always ready with a quip about everything anyone does. He's actually pretty damn funny and often steals the show. He's the reminder that Lunar never takes itself too seriously. It's that group dynamic, the friendship and the growth that lies at the heart of Lunar. You can feel the influence of 80s and 90s anime here. A bunch of kids thrown into a huge romantic adventure full of humor, danger, and melodrama. It's corny, but, you know, in the best possible way. That's why people who played this in the 90s still talk about it oh so fondly. Where things start to get heavier through that middle stretch, when Luna is kidnapped and revealed to be the reincarnation of the goddess Althena, suddenly this simple story about a boy chasing his hero's legacy turns into something more personal. A love story that questions faith, destiny, and free will. Kind of like a PG version of Xenogears.
Hell no, man. What the fuck, man?
Alex's journey shifts from wanting to be like Dyne to choosing who he is, even when the gods themselves seem to say otherwise. That's the real strength of Lunar's writing. It's so earnest. It doesn't try to be morally gray or edgy. It says, yeah, love can actually save the world, and then tease that up. Ghaleon is your main nemesis, a fallen idealist who once looked up to Dyne, just like Alex, but eventually lost faith in humanity's ability to protect itself. He's the yin to your yang, the dark to your light. His banter with the crew early on makes his betrayal truly sting. He's right there in Alex's shadow. It's that classic, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain thing, years before Nolan made that memeable. By the end, Alex's transformation into the new Dragon Master feels well earned. After saving the dragons and rescuing his girl from a distinct hoe phase, he really grows into the title through loyalty, compassion, and persistence. And that final scene, oh man, that reunion with Luna, set to the reprise of her song, still hits hard even in the year of our Lord 2025. Simple, but it works. And I gotta say, man, at the start of this, I wasn't that impressed. The story felt like a million other JRPGs that I'd played. The characters felt one-dimensional and troped out to the max. But what Silver Star's story does so well is slowly pull you back the curtain. As you watch these characters grow and react, you realize, man, this is a true hero's journey. When the credits rolled, I had chills, y'all, like for real. These characters are awesome, even if the story beats are familiar and somewhat predictable. It's funny, playing this now after decades of grim cinematic RPGs. Looking at you, Claire Obscure.
Love ya.
Lunar almost feels rebellious in its optimism. It's not trying to shock you with lore or body counts. It just wants you to believe that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. That's why even now, when you strip away the cynicism, Lunar's story still works. It's not the complexity that makes it great, it's the sincerity. A forward-thinking tale about humanity being enough, about gods not defining our worth. I really mess with Lunar's story. Now, if the story is the heart of Lunar Silver Star's story, the gameplay is the circulatory system. It keeps things moving, but you're never really paying attention to it, except if you're high and suddenly aware of your blood flowing while watching Supermarket Sweep. Yeah, no, that's never happened to me before. Anyway, combat sits in this weird in-between space. Technically turn-based, but with a pseudo-tactical twist. Characters automatically move across a small grid based on range and positioning, which back in 1992 was pretty unique. Kinda ahead of its time, even. It's no Final Fantasy Tactics, but there's enough movement that you can't just mash attack, at least in theory. In practice, the real problem is there's not much else there. Each character has one linear path for weapons, armor, and skills. You don't choose between branching builds or experiment with playstyles. Before someone says,
well, it was made in 1992.
So was Shining Force, which had promotions and randomized stat growths. There's no, maybe I'll go magic heavy this run, or let me try a weird setup this time. It's one size fits all. Every weapon is just a slightly stronger version of the last, with maybe a minor bonus here and there. Skill upgrades come at set levels. It's not bad, it's just basic. Like ordering a burger with no toppings, it fills you up, but it's not all that memorable. Lunar's encounter rate is crazy high, and even though the enemies do appear on screen, they run at you like that buddy from Get Out. You'll try to sneak past only to get tagged anyway. Yeah, you'll fight a lot. Thank God for the new 3-time combat speed in the remaster. I interfaced with this combat only a few times, enough to write about it, honestly. You can have just as much fun letting auto battle do all the work. Dungeons are straightforward as well, sometimes too straightforward, and often rely on that walk down every hallway just to make sure you didn't miss a chest formula. The fast forward feature is a lifesaver, bro. Zipping through basic fights turns what could have been a monumental slog into something quite breezy. Without it, I probably would have fallen off of this. It shaved off at least 3, maybe 4 hours of tedium. Truthfully, I wasn't engaging with most systems after maybe a couple hours. Once I figured out the rhythm, attack, heal, repeat, that was it. I mean, some boss fights do throw a few curveballs, but even those lean more on pattern recognition than true strategy. It's an RPG where the journey matters more than the mechanics. That said, it's still satisfying. Watching your party move across the field, seeing spells light up the screen, hearing,
check this out,
for the 3,589th time, it's got that early 90s JRPG swag. You combine that with the faster pace of the remaster and it flows well enough that I never truly tired of it. It's also really easy overall, so you rarely need to babysit your party except in the toughest of boss fights. So yeah, it's fun, it's comfortable, like a cozy blanket, but it's also the weakest part of the game. Lunar's story and characters pull you forward. The combat's just the vehicle. Still, I'll say this, sometimes it's nice to play a JRPG where you don't need a spreadsheet to plan your next upgrade. Lunar's gameplay doesn't ask much of you, but maybe that's part of the appeal. A simple, straightforward adventure that lets you soak in the world instead of getting lost in yet another menu. Lunar's gameplay might be basic, but the visuals are anything but, especially for the time. This game just oozes personality, from the hand-drawn character sprites to those gorgeous anime cutscenes that still hit like you're watching Toonami for the very first time. Even in its earliest incarnation on the Sega CD, Lunar stood out for its art direction. But in Silver Star Story Complete, Game Arts went full pull, redrawing nearly every character sprite, redesigning the environments, and reanimating the cutscenes with new voice work and crisp colors that made it feel like you were watching a Saturday morning cartoon. It's that brand of fantasy comfort food, expressive, colorful, and just the right amount of cheese. In the 2025 remaster, that presentation holds up shockingly well. The sprites are sharp without looking over filtered. The backgrounds pop with that 16-bit era brightness The kind of saturation that modern games sometimes dull down in the name of, realism? But not here. Lunar still looks bubbly and vibrant, leaping off of your screen. The anime cutscenes, originally animated by Studio Gonzo, got upscaled for the remaster, and they still carry that hand-drawn steez. The line work isn't perfect, but that's part of what makes them great. They feel like something you'd see recorded off TV onto a VHS tape in 1996. They give the story extra emotional kick too. Seeing Luna sing in full motion, Alex facing down Ghaleon, or those hilariously stiff 3D models of armor. It all hits harder when the music and animation sync perfectly. Character portraits got cleaned up as well. Each one still drips with personality. From Jessica's cocky smirk to Nash's "I went to magic school" energy. Keep this dude away from Asher Roth. Now, even though the combat animations are simple, they are lively. Spells shimmer, swords swang, and even change appearance, and enemies explode with a satisfying burst of pixels that make every hit feel just crunchy enough. The only weak links visually are the dungeon design, and even that feels more like a relic of its time than a flaw. Corridors are plain, layouts are predictable, and there's not a ton of environmental storytelling. But the bright colors and simple geometry give it this weirdly cozy appeal, almost like flipping through a JRPG coloring book. Presentation-wise, Lunar is one of those games that understands tone better than most others. The visuals, music, and dialogue all sync up to deliver something warm, something expressive, and completely confident in its identity. I really dig it. And in that sense, Silver Star's story complete, and especially the 2025 remaster, still accomplishes what it set out to do nearly 30 years ago. Make you feel like you're stepping into a fantasy anime that just so happens to be a playable video game. Alright, so for those of you who've watched my channel before, you know what it is with music. The right song can elevate a story beat into something unforgettable. Lunar Silver Star's story, how do I say it? Almost gets there. Let's start with the good news. The opening theme is straight heat. Noriyuki Iwadare, who also worked on Grandia and later Phoenix Wright, composed a score overflowing with melody. The remastered intro immediately sells the world's optimism. It's dramatic, it's catchy, and it sets a hopeful tone before you even hit start. It's got that early CD era energy where you can tell the composers were so proud they finally get to use real instruments. And then you've got Luna's ballad, Wind's Nocturne, the emotional centerpiece. Honestly, Luna carries this OST for the most part. It's simple, but it's heartfelt, and in context, it works.
Into the starlit night, foolish dreamers.
When she sings it during that quiet campfire scene, beautiful. The rest of the soundtrack is a mixed bag. There are moments where it soars, like the absolutely incredible Toward the Horizon, such a dope overworld theme, or Reach for the Front, which has these slick piano runs, synths, and samba-esque rhythms that feel straight out of Guile's old stage in Street Fighter II. But yeah, there are a lot of forgettable tunes, humbly, in my opinion. A lot of the dungeons and combat tracks sit right in that mid-90s JRPG zone of serviceable. They're melodic and pleasant, but they rarely grab you. You can tell Iwadare had to balance between creating atmosphere and not overloading the limited sound channels of the Sega CD. Even the remastered arrangements can't completely hide how safe some of these loops are. Now, I wouldn't call it bad, it's just good background music that occasionally flirts with greatness. Now, to the remaster's credit, the audio quality is pretty damn crisp. The orchestration's been cleaned up, the voice lines re-recorded. Thank God, because I did go check out some of the stuff that was out there in the world, and my God, that 90s dub is wild. And everything sounds fuller through modern speakers. The sound effects are vintage RPG in the best way, honestly. Snappy, exaggerated, and instantly recognizable. Every menu input makes that satisfying little chirp. Level up jingles sparkle with a cheerful synth sting. The swoosh of a sword and the woomph of a fire spell both have that crunchy 16-bit texture that scratches that nostalgic itch. Even small touches like the soft chime when you open a chest or the little bloop when you confirm a command, they all add to the tactile feel. The remaster didn't overhaul these much, thankfully, just cleaned and rebalanced them so they sit nicely in modern mixes. It's like they lovingly restored an old vinyl record. Still has that warmth and the imperfections, just without all the pops and the hisses and all that other bullshit. So where does that leave the sound overall? Well, Silver Star's story complete soundtrack is definitely a product of the era. It's charming, inconsistent, but heartfelt. When it hits, it really truly hits. And when it doesn't, it still sounds like a warm memory locked inside your head. Even if it's not an all-timer soundtrack like Persona 5 or Chrono Trigger or Chrono Cross or Final Fantasy Tactics, it's got that unmistakable game arts DNA. Bright, hummable, and perfectly tuned in to the game's sense of wonder and adventure. Over 30 years on from the first Lunar, the Silver Star, I can say this. Yeah, it's basic, but it's also beautifully basic. There's no massive class system. You won't be flipping through dozens of FAQs to figure out your next build or an 80-page wiki to unlock a secret ending. You get what you get in Lunar, a straightforward, sincere adventure with heart. It's baby's first JRPG, and I mean that in the best possible way. It's the kind of game that doesn't complicate things needlessly. It leads you along without making you feel dumb for it. You've got clear goals at a cozy, chill pace in a world that just feels good to be in. When you play Lunar, you're not fighting against the UI or dense combat system. You're along for the ride with Alex, Luna, and their loud, lovable crew. And that crew really is what makes it all work. The party banter is endlessly charming. Jessica and Kyle's bickering, Nash being smug as all hell. Okay, I accept you, Nash. Nall bringing the zingers to every drunkard and cat hater alike. That's the game's personality right there. It's goofy, it's sincere, it's occasionally clunky, but it's full of soul. That's something a lot of modern RPGs, for all their cinematic polish, still struggle with. The remaster smooths out most of the rough edges. 3-time battle speed is a godsend, the upscaled visuals look great, and the difficulty rebalance makes it actually enjoyable instead of grindy as hell. Without those changes, I don't know if I'd have stuck around long enough to fall for it. Because fam, the gameplay is still the weakest link. It's simple to a fault. One linear gear track, one linear skill track, and not much room to experiment. It's the definition of meat and potatoes. But when you've got so much else going for it, that's fine. You don't need foie gras when you just want some Kraft Mac and a Capri Sun. Where Lunar shines is everything around the mechanics. The story is timeless, simple, but heartfelt. The characters are endearing. The world feels warm, colorful, inviting. It's the kind of game that takes you back to being a kid on Saturday morning, cereal bowl in hand, watching an adventure that made you believe the world was so much bigger than you thought. And yeah, it's cheesy, kind of like The Craft. It's old-fashioned, but it's also real. There's no irony or pessimism in Lunar. It's like you and me before the last 30 years beat the absolute shit out of us, back when we still believed in good things. It's all about a group of friends trying to do the right thing in a world that's lost its way. Well, except for Might's Tower. That place can still burn. One of the worst dungeons ever. But by the time the credits rolled, I didn't care that the combat was shallow or that the dungeons felt samey. I cared because I liked these people. I laughed with them. I rooted for them. I got a little misty-eyed when Lunar sang that final song. Lunar's Silver Star Story Complete may not be the shiniest JRPG, but it doesn't have to be. It's a reminder of where the genre came from and how much heart it used to have baked into even the simplest moments. So yeah, it's basic, but basic doesn't mean boring. Sometimes basic just means pure. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, check out this one here, all about another classic JRPG I played entirely too late in life. Make sure to like if you like and subscribe if you love. What are some of your favorite cozy JRPGs? Let me know down below. Until next time, keep that healing nut on deck, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.